Welcome to Partner Point of View, where we sit down with PTC partners and discuss how together we innovate, collaborate, and unlock power by the convergence of physical and digital worlds.
Hi there, I'm Chris Wolf, VP of Alliance Management at PTC. I'm joined here today in the studio in Boston by Dr. Shamit Ghosh. He's the North American Engineering and Manufacturing Lead for Accenture's Industry X business. Welcome, Shamit.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
And from Austria, my colleague Andreas Pappinger. He's PTC's Global Head of Automotive ALM. And we're here today to dive into the market context for software-defined everything. So Shamit, before we get into the serious stuff, if we're talking about software-defined everything, what's your favorite software-defined anything?
Well, what I'm currently doing is I'm trying to integrate all the different house controls. At my house, we did some renovation, and so I want to get all the cameras in, safety systems and light switches and all that. What I'm currently working on as well is I have to figure out how to motorize the blinds so that I don't get the bumblebees in the summertime. So that's a little bit where I am. But I think I will control it all through one app, and obviously there's a lot of software-defined everything involved.
Well, I have to let our audience in on our little joke there. For every time Shamit says the word bumblebee, I will donate $100 to Girls Who Code. And same goes, I'll donate $10 to Girls Who Code for every time one of you retweets this podcast using hashtag bumblebee. So let's get back to the context. Everybody remembers Marc Andreessen's famous comment that software is eating the world.
Yeah.
What does that mean in the automotive industry?
Yeah, I mean, this comment has been around for a little bit of a while, right? So there has been a lot of change in the auto industry. I think at its core, what we've seen over time is like a dramatic expansion of the technologies that are going into the vehicles, as well as with it, the complexity of the product. It has increased dramatically, right? And just to give you a few examples, 100 million lines of code in a vehicle, right? That's crazy. It's way more than I think a 747 ever had, right? And technologies like over-the-air update that you as a consumer would expect in all the vehicles are not all there yet, right? So there's more coming. I think the acceleration of the software introduction into the product will just increase, right? And with that, the complexity will increase. And this comes in all kind of areas of technology in the vehicle, whether it's autonomous driving and the ADAS functionality, whether it's connected vehicle, electrification, or the services around, right? So we will probably see even more of that complexity increasing.
Andreas, you've worked with some of the most sophisticated luxury automobile makers in the world in Europe. How are you seeing those companies take leadership in software-defined vehicles?
Several different approaches. Really leaders in terms of software-defined vehicle development are actually proclaiming agility as a very important aspect of in their strategy. In addition, it's a very often a question about which architecture decisions they're making in terms of very, let's say, progressive cloud-based architectures compared to still domain-based architectures. You can look at different OEMs and look at their current models, and you see the differences there. From a very, let's say, high-level portfolio point of view, in terms of organizational changes and process and method changes. The most successful ones are really reviewing everything they did and how they did in the past, and they validate what needs to change in terms of being software-defined vehicle ready with respect to their innovation capabilities. At the end of the day, it's about, for the OEMs, how are they able to actually build software with highest quality, consumer-like, making a difference, and also being safe and secure, and satisfying important market needs, like being able to update application new versions over the air. So that means a lot of changes also in terms of infrastructure, in terms of capabilities.
Shamit, I'm interested in this concept of alliances. It feels to me like Tesla set the pace, and there are a lot of Chinese automakers who are fast followers. And the European organizations are kind of binding together to create these alliances. Tell me a little bit about what you see there.
So I think the need for alliances is driven or rooted in the complexity, right? Because it's just too much to like catch up, right? And do it yourself, right? So I think that's where the need for these alliances come in. I think what we see is that in order to introduce software-defined vehicle capabilities into the organization, as well as obviously the features into the product, there has to be a lot of change in the organization, right? Which, if you now couple the change that you have to do in an organization, in your processes, probably your talent base, right? Your methods, your tool chain, and you couple this now with like, hey, let's do this with 3 others who probably also are going through the same change. You add another layer of complexity to it, right? So I feel like that is a component that sometimes gets a little bit overlooked or underestimated, right? That even though we all want to team up, right? We need to somehow find a way then how to actually team up and how to work together while we actually try to redefine the way how we as one individual company have to work, right? So I think it's not as easy. On paper, it looks always great, right? But the execution of it is very hard, and I think that's something to keep in mind.
Andreas, I'm often asking people, how do smaller companies keep up with the innovation that large companies can afford? But it seems in this case, being a large company is more challenging if you're going to compete in the software-defined world. Would you agree?
Yes, I agree with that statement. The reason for that is larger companies, I mean, the OEMs, but also the ones that have a much bigger legacy, obviously, because there is a brownfield of everything, I would say. For the smaller companies, it's easier actually. Actually, we have also with the support of PTC to use our development tools, templates, which are specifically tailored for ASPICE, and get ready fast. So there's actually support for smaller companies in terms of on their journey to have kind of an accelerated start. This is where PTC contributes value, but also for the bigger companies, I would summarize the value before that. PTC is able to actually support them in their software innovation journey for software-defined vehicles, by making sure that the development cycles will be shortened, costs get be reduced, complexity is managed, but also all safety and regulatory requirements are actually fulfilled and satisfied. So safety and security is essential for being able to meet your time to market expectations and windows. So this is where our tool chain and our digital thread offering comes into play.
Well, I not disagree with what Andreas said. I think just because you're a smaller company, it's not necessarily easier. Because I feel like even smaller companies have culture, they have history, background. They maybe not always have all the resources needed to make the right investments into what I would describe is necessary as a real digital engineering transformation. Right? And so I think investing in new technology or investing into different tool chains, what he just said, right? That is something that I think, especially when you look at the product and the features you want to introduce, right? That you probably need different people, you need new talent and all that. There's a lot of like investments that need to be made that maybe smaller companies struggle with or like have to draw out a little more, right?
So talk to me a little bit about the culture. I mean, anybody who has loved a Porsche Speedster appreciates German engineering, and they like to get their hands dirty. And yet you're not going to get your hands dirty on a modern Porsche today. Well, how is that culture changing in Europe?
So I feel that the companies that have been around for such a long time, right? Like obviously the product of an automobile has been a mechanical thing, right? That's how it all started. And with the introduction of software, I think mechanical engineers, I'm one myself, right? It's not natural to like think in software and in zeros and in ones, if I will, right? We think in Newton meters and in hardware. So the whole shift of an entire organization from like having this more component and hardware system background and the mentality of all the individual engineers, right, to something, hey, we're behaving now like we're developing video games, right? And we do this very quickly, and if we fail, that's great. We'll do it all over again. We develop it very agile, right? I think that's a huge mentality shift, right? And I think that's what companies struggle the most with, right? And therefore, I think a real transformation has to encompass the organization, has to encompass the processes, has to absolutely come with a much better and smarter tool chain, right? And PTC is a fantastic company that has solutions for this, right? And I think that's what's needed in addition to this cultural shift.
Well, certainly, Andreas, you'd agree that PTC grew up working with mechanical engineers, starting with CAD and then PLM systems. And share a little bit of the folklore of PTC's acquisition of Intland Software and how Intland really kind of rocked the world, frankly, winning some major projects, I think first with BMW and with some onward brands. Tell us a little bit about the history of Intland and its acquisition by PTC.
Before the acquisition, I want to share with you, I heard very often, PTC, a great company, but heavily kind of CAD/CAM, mechanical, windshield, PLM centric. And I got kind of question, is PTC kind of seeing how also the world is changing? Yeah? I want to state and confirm that PTC is really serious about having understood how important software is for a huge number of the current customer base. Yeah? And software-defined X, it's going across many industries, therefore X. Yeah? So therefore, the investment of Intland was a very smart move. Also now following investment of Q software for variant management, and product line engineering is kind of augmenting the portfolio of PTC. Yeah. So still one critical, let's say, remark I want to make. Acquiring, technology for the portfolio is one thing, but also, integrating it nicely, along the digital thread thing. Yeah, we have a really continuous engineering, experience. That's actually ongoing now. Yeah, and it's easier said than done. Yeah? But the good news is, I see it happening now, and I see that it's going to be even creating more value for our customers, especially the deep integration, but also without sacrificing openness. This is part of our strategy and our philosophy. We are not forcing our customers to have a lock-in. We need to take everything from PTC. All the tool offerings are, fitting together. They will be more integrated, but there's still a good level of openness.
Well, we've certainly tried to embrace that open mindset. We'd be nothing without our delivery partners. We make the tools, but you make those tools work to bring value to users and clients. Talk to me a little bit about your experience leading Industry X and working with PTC.
So Accenture has invested over the last, let's say, 2, 3, 4 years very heavily in building up core capabilities in engineering through very strategic acquisitions. Umlaut being one, Zielpuls, ESR Labs, and others, yeah? Just a few that I named here. Accenture has formed then a new service line, which is called Industry X, that targets basically the transformation of engineering and manufacturing. In these core engineering capabilities, relevancy for automotive sits in system design capabilities, architecture design capabilities, system engineering, software development, hardware prototyping, integration, as well as test and validation. So it's very, very relevant, right, for the development of automotive products. And I think what I'm highlighting here is if you want to do a digital transformation, it's very important that you understand the product and how the product is being developed, because only then can you actually transform, right? And therefore it was necessary that Accenture built out these capabilities which we have at scale now, in basically for deployment in all parts of the world. And this now allows us to team up with PTC, right? And to say, well, now we're taking a very intelligent tool chain, right? And we understand now how we can actually insert these new tools into the way how our clients work, because we work with our clients already on the development of those products. And also, how do we transform the processes and the organization in order to be even more efficient, right? And to get more done with the same amount of resources or even with less resources.
Well, there's a real tension, I think, Andreas, between the need for innovation, the need for faster cycle times, and the need for improved quality. Those things don't seem to go together almost anywhere in the natural world, and yet Codebeamer is helping complex organizations achieve those three things in parallel. Tell me a little bit about the Codebeamer software product and its application in automotive.
Chris, I would like to comment on our dialogue before. I actually fully agree with David. Looking at the processes, the organization is key. Very important, and PTC is offering a rich set of tools, but you need to know what are you doing with the tools before you actually deploy. Now, coming to your question, application lifecycle management tool, you need to have an idea about, how is your business fabric looking. It's really about the complete new business fabric, how the whole, let's say, enterprise looks like, and after that those strategy decisions, later in the process, obviously, you look which kind of tools are supporting objectives, and how those tools are helping, and this is, now I'm closer to your question. Basically, our customers, the value which tool like Codebeamer is providing and offering is basically, it helps our customers to actually automate certain tasks, to also, let's say, create with overseeable total cost of ownerships aligned processes, and also to have, let's say, traceability, which is kind of coming built in or as a byproduct. Ideally, you want maximum engineering capability, innovation, and also certain flexibility. But for safety and security, critical application spaces and domains, you need to make sure that there's no compromise in terms of fulfilling all the safety and security requirements. And safety and security is something very often engineers, they obviously, need to fulfill it, but it's also coming with a lot of, let's say, overhead. And to be very specific, one core value of Codebeamer is to actually allow maximum innovation, software innovation with reduced cycle, with a high level of agility, but also, satisfying, validation, verification, and safety and security needs.
Shomit, for some of our audience who haven't worked for a car manufacturer, I envision lots of engineers and drawing boards and models and physical things, and it's very hard to get a handle on what that software development looks like. How many people do they have? What's the mix of people, the mix of the work that's done? How does it all come together?
Obviously, the workforce numbers are different, right, for different automakers, and I think when you think about the team that does it, they basically obviously work a lot on requirements definition. Obviously, then you have folks that code, right? And some of it probably will also get enhanced by new technologies like Gen AI to help with some of the coding. And then there's still a component where you basically take the ready code and then basically flash it or transform it or transport it in any way onto either a hardware piece where it lives on and then basically test it, or the next step is to actually virtualize the hardware so that you can test it without having the physical hardware, but you test the functionality, right? And then obviously what you want to do is you want to drive as much automation, as much remote capability into your test and validation and your integration work, right? So that's kind of very different than, let's say, hardware, right? Where you basically specify, you work with a supplier, you wait for until they've made tools, made hardware prototypes, they ship them back, you take them, or you look at them, you just go down to the shop, build them into the vehicle. I mean, this is decades away from how it used to work, right? And so I think that's kind of like what's important. And I feel like the software development and the software-defined feature development will shift to a complete virtual world. And that, I think, is very much desired in order to like reduce the cost of development, to basically capture also the complexity that's always increasing. We talked about this earlier. And also enhance the agility and the speed, right, of execution. So that's, I think, where the future is going to.
Andreas, I'd love for you to share a little storytelling with me. There's folklore around the industry that at one point in time, a large German automobile manufacturer put out a call for innovative application lifecycle management. And all of the big players rallied to respond to that. And yet the small company, Intland Software, stole the bride from the altar. Can you tell us that story?
Yes, happy to do so. It was indeed a very nice journey with BMW. Actually, it started back 2017. We came across actually a chap from BMW. He was actually Scrum Master. So a person who is responsible at BMW to introduce less large-scale Scrum. And he was looking for tools at Embedded World in Nuremberg in 2017. Yeah. So he was coming out of the department for autonomous driving. And we met him. He looked at Codebeamer and he really liked, let's say, the capabilities of Codebeamer, combining, ASPICE, rigid development with agile methodologies and capabilities. Yeah. So at this time, we started with this department. And interestingly enough, at the same time, the central ID group, which is responsible for requirement management tools, that have been standing in front of an end-of-life decision of another ALM vendor, a legacy vendor. So we got the chance to actually start with the autonomous driving division at BMW, and then we got, let's say, involved and invited to a hackathon with BMW on a corporate level. Yeah? And in terms of stories, I would like to come back actually to the autonomous driving decision. And we talked earlier about agility and moving fast and being a fast first mover rather than a follower. Yeah? BMW's executive management was really serious about the agility. They understood, looking at the market, we as BMW, we need to move much faster. Software will be very, very important in terms of differentiating, having this great driving experience, in a BMW, yeah. And we need to build up software competence, yeah. And I can say BMW, from a European point of view, was really the leader at this time, 2017, yeah. And the anecdote is, we went to the campus in Unterschleißheim, where all the autonomous driving, division was located and centered around as a campus. And the seriousness of top management about agility, about moving faster, yeah, and also flexibility was so clear that they actually, all the rooms have been kind of decorated and built out like startup garages. So the message from management in terms of building the campus was, we at BMW, the BMW employees, we need to act like startups. We need to move faster. We need to take risks. We need to reduce, as say, the development cycles and be innovative. So that was very nice, and it made an impression as members of the Intland software team. Another interesting, let's say, background I wanted to share is, you can imagine, BMW, now they have about more than 150,000, 60,000 employees. At this time, it was probably a little bit less, but it was a tremendous risk to actually go for a company like Intland. We had about 70, 80 people at this moment located up in Stuttgart. Yeah? And in retrospect, after we closed the deal, we asked interfaces from BMW and said, what was really, let's say, what have been the key reasons why they selected Codebeamer with Intland? And BMW basically said the following. At first, they say they like our technology. Yeah, they like Codebeamer, the architecture, the way to set up Codebeamer, the flexibility in terms of workflow configuration, test management, and scalability. Secondly, they saw also that there are gaps. But what really impressed them was in the spirit of what I explained before about moving fast and being agile. Within the hackathon, we have been actually able as Intland to actually even close gaps in an agile manner. There was especially around configuration management, and out of a platform to build a branch. We had no branching at this time in 2017. And in an agile manner, our team in Hungary, with the leadership of Janos and George Kopany, actually we augmented the product even within the hackathon. And we delivered value, augmented value. And that really impressed BMW, because they say, you're a small company, but we have the impression that we can rely on you. They felt we understand what they need. We understand automotive, we understand software development, we understand the agile software development, and we also understand, because the automotive grade key requirements, like what I talked earlier about, safety, security, and having the possibilities to build a platform and have, let's say, a sophisticated software development process also in place and supported by Alien.
So Shomit, I mean, this is the perfect metaphor, really, for what large organizations, large distributed organizations are going through, hacking their way to the ultimate driving machine.
No, absolutely. I mean, I like this example, what Andreas shared very much, because having had so many acquisitions come into Accenture Industry X, we benefit from the way how all these acquisitions think and operate. And we basically bring this all together back to the clients, right? Because if you do want to have a transformation, obviously it has to be at large scale, right? So you need to impact in a distributed organization all the different areas, right? And especially when you want to capture the large complexity we talked about earlier. But the transformation has not only to be like be on a large scope, but it has to come at speed. Right? And in order to come at speed, as Andreas laid it out, it has to be nimble, it has to be agile, and therefore you need a different mindset, right, of people also who are used to this agility, right, that's just the way how they operate, and that's the urgency you can then bring to the client, right? And we love teaming up also with partners during the transformation at some of our clients that have that same mindset, right? That think a little bit like agility and urgency is what we need, so that we actually get it done at speed and at the scale that's needed.
Well, I'm looking forward, Andreas, to our next conversation with your friend and mine, David Rush, colleague of Shomit. We'll be talking a little bit about, invoking that mindset and actually bringing and activating software definition through application lifecycle management in a lot more detail. So viewers, I hope you'll stay tuned with us until next time. Shomit, thank you for being with us on our kickoff.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was great.
And Andy, I'll see you very soon.
Yes, thank you. Thanks you also. Shomit, thank you also on my behalf. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, Andreas. Good seeing you again.
Yeah, good to see you again, yes.